According to scientists, our subconscious is 1,000,000 times more powerful than our conscious mind and controls us about 95% of the time. I would say I was desperate, but the doctor that I worked with who taught me what I know said I was so courageous. I always kind of laughed at that, said, no, I was desperate. And he'd say, no, you're courageous. I actually was courageous.
The feeling of desperation does not negate courage. It's even like saying because fear exists that you're not courageous, when in fact they can exist in the same exact moment.
What I had was limiting beliefs that wouldn't let me find solutions, meaning you have to look good was the limiting belief I had, which means I couldn't reach out to let people know I was struggling. I have a perfectionist mother who wants everything done her way, and I'm a strong-headed, opinionated person myself. And so when I was 2, I said, can I move out? Because this isn't working for me. And she said,
welcome back, everybody, to Flipping the Lid. You know what we do here by now. I like to have the real, raw conversations with some of the most impactful and influential people on this planet, and I always get surprised by the depth and realness of these conversations. Today, I've got a guest that I'm really excited to dive in with. She is a mother first, and that is solely one of the roles that she identifies with and makes it very, very clear. She's also somebody that very clearly expresses herself and has a history of overcoming chronic pain. She's also in a position where she's consistently helping other people chase their dreams, be able to ground themselves in what they're doing, and ultimately transform into who they are, who they're capable of being. And in the little bit of time I've spent with her, the conversations so far have been real. They've been on point, and I am just looking forward to tapping into Jenny Harkleroad's absolute wisdom today. So I'm excited to have you here with us.
Thanks, Brian. Super happy to be here.
Well, you may already be expecting this first question. It's the only question I ask every guest on both shows that I have, which is outside of however I've introduced you and whatever I've said about you in this time. Jenny, who are you in your words?
I love that. And you said so many of them, so it might be a repeat here, but I'm a mother for sure, a wife, a daughter. Those are things I love, those relationships, and they mean so much to me. A sister as well. I love to overcome. I love to find a problem and solve it. I believe I have a super powerful, simple, effective way to solve any problem. So I love when somebody tells me something's wrong. I try not to get too excited about it. But I'm excited because there are solutions. And so many times in my life, I didn't have a solution and I felt hopeless. And now that I have solutions, I love sharing those with people and just helping expand that message throughout the world, helping people feel hope and joy and purpose and passion and solution for sure in their life.
You know, I love the nuance of even what you just said, and I want to jump right in on even the tail part of that answer. You know, I think to be able to overcome, we have to be able to perceive solutions, find solutions, create solutions. Yet that is the epitome of what most people experience when they're stuck, is they feel like they don't have options. They don't have perceived paths. Now, obviously, there's an element that I believe very strongly can help surface and create options and opportunities for people. But, you know, sometimes solutions really don't exist. And many times I would suggest it's actually perceived that they don't exist. And so when you look at the history of your life in this way that you identify, I did not have solutions before. I don't like to ask closed questions nor leading questions, but I may not have a better way to word this one. Part of this I'm curious about is, looking back now, did you really not have solutions, or did you not know how to find them? And how do you teach that overall concept today?
Yeah. What I had was limiting beliefs that wouldn't let me find solutions, meaning you have to look good was the limiting belief I had, which means I couldn't reach out to let people know I was struggling and what can I do for help? I was putting on the happy face, trying to fake it till I make it, but I was just faking it. And I personally didn't know what the solutions were. We didn't have ChatGPT back then. So I didn't know how to find an answer. And Webster's dictionary maybe wasn't helping me enough. I just didn't know what to do besides keep faking it and keep taking pain pills, which is what I did, because I had a lot of physical pain due to the emotional pain I wasn't dealing with.
Yeah, and I identify with that deeply as well. And we're going to get to the pain component. But you just said that really well. It's there may have been solutions, but you were not in a position to be able to see them, find them, or ask for them, even in the moments that you wanted to. And the limiting beliefs that we have created for us most often early in our lives often can make us feel that way, feel stuck, and feel as if there are no options. And I can guarantee you, in the people that you work with, many of them come to you believing they don't have options or solutions in front of them. And so I guess that's what I'd like to really be able to understand before we get into the work that you're doing. How did you shift that limiting belief to be able to find the solutions or ask the right questions to point you towards the options and opportunities so you finally could break that pattern of just showing up with a smile on because that's what the world told you?
Yeah, I love that question. And I used to say I found it because I was desperate and I had to find a solution. I couldn't get any lower than I was. So I would say I was desperate, but the doctor that I worked with who taught me what I know said I was so courageous. And I always kind of laughed at that and said, no, I was desperate. And he'd say, no, you're courageous. And I started noticing that as I started offering solutions, I meet people every day who are struggling. And a lot of times they're unwilling to even look at a solution. And so I started to realize, you know what? I actually was courageous and desperate. I was in a really bad place, but I did have courage to get out of that place. Even when doctors said I would never recover, I was looking for a way to recover.
I really appreciate the distinction between feeling desperate and this idea of courage. I often find in life, I believe things exist in contrast, right? We often have our highs and our lows in similar moments. We create our trash and our treasure often in these similar moments. And, the feeling of desperation does not negate courage, right? It's even like saying because fear exists that you're not courageous, when in fact, right, they can exist in the same exact moments.
Yeah.
How did you start to be able to decipher the distinguishing factors between those two words and actually shift yourself to the place of recognizing that what the doctor was saying was in fact real, and that, yes, I can be desperate and still be courageous?
Yeah, I think it was just like I said, running into other people where I said, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry you're going through this, or this is happening to you, or you're feeling this way. Would you like to hear a solution? And they would basically say no. They would say, oh, I've got some other program or process or whatever, which is great. And would you be open to looking at something else? And no, I'm not. And so I thought, this is interesting. The work that I do is deep subconscious work, and you got to take a look at yourself and see what is causing this, from the inside out. And people would rather go have surgery or something else than really look at what's going on. And also, maybe did I create some of this? Because we don't want to feel that way. We don't want to think that way. For me, most of my life, I blamed everybody else. And the weird thing was the problems didn't go away. I couldn't change the other people. I'd meet someone new and there would be similar problems, and I didn't notice I was the common denominator.
Yeah. I do find it interesting as well, because even the way you just described that, the perspective that you use to ground yourself in the way that you navigate is pretty powerful. And to be able to recognize and see that if even given options and solutions, most do not even want to take it, right? Really helps highlight the fact that either they are not desperate enough or suffering enough, or they don't have the courage to actually step into it. Whereas I was one of those like you, that because I lived with daily physical pain for nearly 31 years, I tried pretty much anything and everything I could to figure it out. And what's interesting is, similar to what you said early on, it was actually nothing external that I did that got me to be alleviated in my pain.
Right.
You said something earlier in our call, and we don't have to get into the details of it, but right in the beginning of our call, right, you had asked me a question, and in the dialogue of our conversation, you said, I'm really doing what I can to continually stand in my truth.
Yeah.
Right? I believe that my reason for existence is to allow my truth to give others permission to live theirs.
Yeah.
Right? And yet that's also the primary clarifier that I have when people say, Brian, who's a good fit to work in your world or not? And it always comes down to a singular thing. It is people who have the desire and the associated courage to find and stand in their truth.
Yeah.
And the old adage becomes real. The truth really does set us free.
Mm-hmm.
So far in these dialogues, you've given really succinct and very direct answers, which is perfect. There's nothing wrong with that. What I would like is maybe a little bit more of a story and a narrative that allowed you to recognize that transformation that you created within yourself, right? To see where your doctor is pointing you, all the things that you've tried externally, this newfound courage that you're able to identify with and start to walk through things. It also doesn't mean that because you see that, you flip the light switch and the pain goes away.
Yeah.
It's a journey and it's a process. You talked about blaming everyone else for most of your life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's go all the way back to the beginning for a second.
Yeah.
What were the dynamics about your story or early stories that you believe created the limiting beliefs in the first place? And outside of the physical pain, right, and the needing to show up to perform, which you've outlined, what were some of the other byproducts, symptoms, or residual unintended consequences to living within those limiting beliefs for so many years?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a perfectionist mother who wants everything done her way, and I'm a strong-headed, opinionated person myself. And so it didn't go very well, the two of us together, a little like oil and water. And she would say something like, "You're 2 years old, you need to take a nap." And I'd say, "I don't want to take a nap. I'm not tired." And she would say, "No, you need to." And I'd say, "I don't want to. I'm not going to." And it would turn into, physical and emotional abuse to make me do what she wanted. And so when I was 2, I said, "Can I move out? Because this isn't working for me." And she said, "No, you can't move out. You're not even potty trained." And I said, "Just pack my diapers. Like, I will figure this out." So it was that tension between the two of us that really wore on me. My dad worked a lot, so he wasn't around a lot. Very quiet. He would come home late and he would do whatever mom told him to do. And so he wasn't involved with me a lot that I recall. And so I just felt like I'm just kind of performing. I'm a puppet, doing what mom wants so I don't get in trouble. And that was growing up. And I started getting really severe pain in elementary school. That's like how my body would deal with it. And so we were always trying to figure out what's wrong with Jenny. Now it's her stomach. Now it's her head. Now it's her back. Now it's her whatever. And so I always just thought it was sickly or, weak immune system. Who knows? I didn't really have a disease, thankfully, but I just never felt good. And my dad was a chiropractor, so he was always adjusting me and giving me herbs, which was probably his way of showing his love. I appreciated that. But it didn't really solve the problem because the problem was still there, And so then I got married young at 18 years old, and that was fun for about 2 years. And then it wasn't so fun. But I stayed because you put on a happy face, you make everybody think everything's going great. And it was about 20 really hard years of pain and emotional pain and marriage pain until I broke my back in a hiking accident in 2013. And I couldn't fake that I was fine anymore because I was bedridden. And I still kind of faked it because I had a big real estate company at the time, and I would still take my real estate calls. They didn't know I was in bed. And I would send my team over to, do the legwork or pay someone to drive me there laying in the back of the car on ice packs. And then when I got inside, standing up, they'd say, "Have a seat." No, I like to stand. So I was still faking it, and it would have continued had I gotten better. Thankfully, I didn't get better. And after a couple years, I ended up having major surgery because I'm like, oh my gosh, there must be something structural, rod, screws, synthetic disc, all of it. Almost a year after that, still can't sit, still can't drive, still can't function. And they tell me there's nothing more we can do for you. Sorry, lady, we'll just keep refilling these pain pills, which if you've ever taken them, they don't really fix the problem.
Yep.
And so I was looking for an answer, and I met a medical doctor who lived about a mile from me who changed my life by telling me, "Jenny, you can heal yourself with your mind." And I said, "What? What are you talking about? My mind? This is my back. I don't understand." And he said, "Well, when you have tension in your mind, it causes tension in your body. Do you have any tension in your mind?" And I repeated my affirmations. I said, no, I'm happy. I'm healthy. I'm terrific. I just can't sit, can't drive, can't function, burning back pain. And he said, well, tell me about your childhood. And I go, oh, I don't talk about my childhood. And he said, well, tell me about your marriage. And I said, I don't talk about my marriage. And he's like, well, do you love what you do? And I'm like, no, I don't, but it's super successful. I have all these houses and cars and Disney cruises, and he's like, so there's no emotional pain there? Nope. I mean, completely suppressing it. And he said, well, if you don't want to talk about it, I really can't help you, because I believe that's what's causing the pain, not you breaking your back 3 years ago. I mean, it should be healed. The body heals, and you had surgery to fix it. And so I said, okay, fine. Do you have a case of Costco Kleenex? Because I'll probably need that many. And I sobbed for an hour and felt worse. And he said, come back, tomorrow. And I really didn't want to, but I did. And I sobbed for another hour and I felt worse. And he said, come back tomorrow. And that just kept happening for 2 weeks. And I thought, what am I doing? This is miserable. Not only is my back killing me, but all this stuff that's coming up, all this emotion that's stirring up. But what I started to notice was that if I would walk towards my real estate desk, my back pain would get worse. If I would think about something negative, my back pain would get worse. And so I started to notice, wow, I think he might be onto something. I think that what's happening in my mind and in my life is, I would have said, adding to this pain. I don't know if I was quite yet at causing this pain, creating this pain, but I think I'm going to have to change careers, because I can't even get to my real estate desk anymore because I would drop to my knees in pain. So I started noticing things and making these connections and believing what he was telling me. And after just a couple of weeks, you mentioned a light switch. It actually did just shut off like a light switch. The pain just disappeared. And I was like, okay, you're ready to deal with your life and all the stuff. And you don't need this pain anymore to be like, I'm trying to tell you something. You're getting it and you're going to keep looking into it. And that's sufficient. So body turned off the pain and it was like nothing ever happened to me. It was a miracle.
So there is so much in there, so much one that I resonate with, so much that I agree with and want to explore. And I'm going to try to distill this in as focused of a way as I possibly can, because there's a lot in the answer you just gave, right? So thank you for really going down that full pathway.
Yeah.
The first question I have around this is though you obviously started to see the patterns over the time of those 2 weeks, you acknowledge those first few days where I cried my eyes out and I felt worse. What kept you going back?
Yeah. He used a process called muscle testing. And muscle testing is a biofeedback system from the body. He was literally pressing on my arm. When he would ask me a question and I would answer, he'd press on my arm like a lie detector test to see if it was true or not. And I could feel what he was saying and where he was going was true to my body. While I consciously wanted to deny it and say, no, this is not my mind. This is not my past. This is not my pain. This is my back. That's not what my arm was saying with the muscle test. Yeah. And he would literally ask, do you want to come back tomorrow? And I'd say no. And he'd say, give me your arm. And my arm would say yes. And I'm like, dang it. Okay, fine. I will come back. It was like my body wanted it, although it was really painful. My conscious mind was like, run, get out of here,
By the way, I've done those exact same types of things. Yeah. And to be respectful to the question that you asked me, I'm going to try to find an alternative to what I would normally say in this case. But it blew my mind, right? Yeah. In the first few times, because I used to be one of those people that if I couldn't see it, I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
Right. And I think everything was so tangibilized, and we experience most things in these physical bodies physically first in some form or fashion. Right. And so it's easy to associate ourselves with that. And the very first time that I did that, and I was like, no, I'll be able to hold my arm, or no, I'll be able to do whatever. And every single stimulus they would give me, I had no control over what was happening. Yeah. It was a response to the body. And yet, to your point, it was enough resonance at the time that I allowed myself to continue to explore there too, where many people would say that's too woo, that's too out of the box, and it's not going to work.
Yeah.
Yet after living with a life of physical pain, there really start to become not many other options, because like you, pain pills weren't a solution for me. They never were, and were never going to be. Not only did they not really do anything, but they're horrible for the body.
Right.
And they wreck all other elements if you actually allow that to take place.
Right.
And I want to be clear here. I have zero judgment for anybody listening to pain pills, to any prescriptions. I view them as tools.
Yeah.
But in this case, those didn't work for me.
Yeah.
You also very clearly at this point in your life are able to articulate and communicate the dynamics that led to it. Right. And, you know, you talk about the first 2 years of being married was really fun. And then you stayed in it anyway for 20 years. Right. And the same thing.
Still in it. Yeah.
Still in it. Even cool. How many years married are you now? 33?
30.
30.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, you clearly have chosen to continue to stay married.
Yes.
And that's amazing.
Yes.
Many people don't ever make it that far, particularly with the level of dynamics that you described for yourself.
Yeah.
If physical pain started showing up as early as your childhood, how did physical pain show up for you as an adult before you broke your back?
Yeah, it really never stopped. So one of the doctors that I love and follow is Dr. John Sarno, and he teaches that there's a personality type that has physical pain, and it's the go-getter and the do-gooder and somebody that is just really an overachiever type. They put a lot of pressure on themselves to look good, to perform, to succeed. And that pressure they put on themselves causes tension in their mind, which causes tension in their body. And so, I mean, I could just go around my body. It was always something wrong with my body. And so the problem was in my 20s, I went into liver failure because I'd been taking so much ibuprofen for the past decade. And so then it was like, okay, now we're going to give you Vicodin or something else that's not going to maybe damage your liver, but it's really strong. And then let's start having surgeries. And then the surgeries led to infections. And it was just one thing after the next. And I put on my happy face and told everybody everything was great. Nobody knew what was going on. Nobody knew how bad I was feeling. I was killing it in real estate, just leading organizations outside of real estate, just creating amazing things, busy. So I didn't have to deal with anything that was going on in my mind, right? Suppressing all that. And it's interesting because right now I'm an empty nester. My 4 kids are grown and gone. And so I don't have the crazy schedule like I used to and have a lot more thinking time. And that's what I avoided in the past, always filling every minute of every day. So I didn't have to feel or think. I could just perform because I'm a good performer. I'm a good achiever. So it's so interesting to be in this place where I can just have quiet and still and be happy and comfortable.
Well, and the archetype you described, I think, fits the description of many high performers. Yeah. And many of us who fit into that category also learned to receive love, validation, and connection through performance, which meant it was always contingent upon what we did instead of who we were or who we are. Even the dynamics of what you're suggesting as it relates to your mom and your father, right? Like, is also a really interesting blend because you've got this very almost control perfectionism dynamic that obviously has criticism, judgment, and shame wrapped and riddled into all of it. Yeah. And then you've got really more of an alternative healer and supporter, but the two of them didn't really integrate inside you in a way that was meaningful early on. Yeah. And yet it did manifest as pain. Yeah. You know, I also noticed, though, that many of these high performers, because we have the ability to utilize our mindset and our focus, can also overperform on that side. And mindset and mentality become the narrative over almost anything else. Yeah. Even to the level of how you discussed not being able to even recognize some of the emotions or things that were taking place. For me, I will say real quickly that I realized at 32, in a moment with my daughter, that when I shut off physical pain, when it exceeded my ability to cope, I also shut off mental pain, emotional pain, and spiritual pain for 25 years. Yeah. The issue for me in relearning how to even feel and start to create that dynamic, because I was so disconnected for so long, was I was actively but unconsciously suppressing every emotion and skipping and bypassing it and whatever body and physiological symptoms I was experiencing and immediately going into my head. Right. And then all of a sudden it's the narratives or the decisions or the choices or the pushing through. Right. Yeah. So completely ignoring the majority of my sensor to the world and actually feeling what's going on.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to do that again. For you, pushing through and pushing down pain for so long, how did that dynamic exist for you as it relates to your thoughts versus your feelings, to your ability to actually be in your body before, again, this intervention after breaking your back?
Yeah, I would say it's still definitely a work in progress. I would say that I don't feel a lot emotionally, that I definitely feel first in my body. It's not a thought, it's a pain. So I might be on a walk and all of a sudden my knee will start hurting and I go, oh, what's trying to come up that I'm blocking? So my body is what I pay attention to and I catch it immediately. I'll start getting a sore throat. I don't think, oh, I'm getting a cold. I go, oh, what am I not saying? You know, my body tells me something is trying to come up. And I do a little self-talk, like, it's okay, like, it's safe. Like, you can tell me it's okay. You can think something negative or think something bad or think something not perfect, right? Like, it's okay. You're human. So it's a little like catch the body, do a little self-talk. I mean, it serves me well in a lot of places. People always say you're so calm and, you know, things can be a whirlwind around you and you're so calm. And I'm like, I don't know if that's a talent or just a defense mechanism, but I don't get triggered very easily anymore. In the past, there were some things that definitely got to me, but yeah, so it's still a work in progress. Sometimes I have to get out a journal and just say, I feel, and start writing because I just don't even know. It's something I'm still working on and probably will be a work in progress my whole life.
Well, I'm sure that it will be because after you live so many decades without it, it's a whole new different process in learning. And I would suggest no different than you. I'm still learning in those same ways. So it's not, I don't think there is a final destination.
Yeah.
However, I do think that, and I've said this for a long time, that pain and perspective both point us towards what's important.
Yeah.
Right. And learning to actually listen and tune in. And then to your point, when you used to not see solutions, now to ask questions or to create the space to evaluate what it's actually telling you before you take action is a really powerful process.
Yeah.
You know, you also did talk about, man, I went for 2 weeks and then it was like the light switch went off.
Yeah.
I will tell you that the day that my pain went away, it was a light switch, but it was over a decade of work that allowed the light switch to flip. In your case, it was 2 weeks, which is an amazing compression of time with a very specific focus.
Yeah.
You also learn to live, though, with a significant amount of pain.
Yeah.
And after 31 years of daily pain and never having a day as an adult without pain until 2.5 years ago, I don't think I fully appreciated the impact on my capacity, especially because I was already performing at a high level.
Yeah.
Right? As were you, outperforming in pain actively, in pain and the amount of pain that would put most people down or in bed for a week.
Yeah.
I know this and I can tell this just by talking to you because it's real.
Yeah.
What was your experience the morning you woke up without pain? And what were the shifts in beliefs or with your relationship with pain that moment on?
Yeah, that's a great question. And really I was standing at my desk when it happened and it like shut off, like, you know, like a stove top is on high and then you shut it off, like the flame. That's how my back always felt, on fire. It was like the flame just was off and I froze. And I didn't want to move because I thought if I turned, I might turn the flame back on. But I yelled for my husband and kids and they came running thinking something was terribly wrong. And I said, the pain is gone. Like, what? This is a miracle. Like, I don't feel any pain right now. And I believe the reason that it happened is because I was now willing to make changes. For example, in real estate, I wanted to get out of real estate. I didn't feel like it was my purpose or as my passion, but I would not allow myself to get out of it. I said, people think you're awesome. People think you're the top salesperson because you are. People think, you know, you're rich because you are. People think. It was all this, you know, you can't get out of this This is what you have to do to look the way you're trying to look so everybody thinks good things about you. And I would say, but what if I want to do something else? And this like slave driver in me would be like, no, look at your checkbook. Look how good you have it. Get back to work, you know? So I was willing to, what do I need to do to stop the pain? It's not worth the trade anymore. It didn't mean it was easy. I remember them putting medals around my neck at a real estate conference, top producer sales, top producer with buyers, you know, all the things, knowing I was about to tell everybody I'm leaving. And what are they going to think? Because most people who don't really know are going to think, oh, maybe she failed.
Yeah.
You know, oh my gosh, I had nightmares. It was terrible. I fired my housekeeper. I sold my house. I mean, and my kids, they weren't very happy either. They're like, Mom, you can keep doing real estate. We know you can. They didn't understand. They just knew the money was going away. Yeah. And so I was willing to make changes. The doctor said, you need to write a story about your life. You need to bring your mom in here so I can talk with your mom. We need to do a bunch of work with your husband, you and your husband together. I mean, it was, even though it only took 2 weeks to get rid of the physical pain, I saw him at least 100 more times just around my marriage alone. I worked. I did a lot of work. And I'm still working every day.
I believe that. I believe that. I have absolutely zero doubt. I think the effort and the approach becomes different when you're not fighting off of the pain.
Yeah.
So that I'm understanding the timelines, because I just want to make sure. And I want to confirm one thing you said.
Yeah.
I do genuinely believe that the unavoidable precursor to change is acceptance, right? Yeah. And until you can accept the current state of things, you can't begin to alter them. And that's what you suggested. Now, what I couldn't tell in terms of the time, it sounded as if you got out of pain and then you exited real estate over the course of the following period of time. Am I mixing up the timeline on that, or did you leave real estate after?
Yeah, I left real estate after I got out of pain, because remember, it was just like 2 weeks, you know?
Yeah,
so there was a lot going on. I left real estate after, but pretty quickly after. I mean, I studied with the doctor so I could learn how to do what he was doing. And I say we because he was muscle testing, and it almost felt like he was telling me, but no, he was just checking with my body. As soon as I felt like I knew enough to do it, I left. I mean, people would call me and say, can you sell my $1 million house? And I'd say, no, but you know about the power of your mind? And they'd say, what? Yeah. And like literally I was selling houses on Friday and started subconscious mindset coaching on Monday. I mean, I felt like an actress in a movie, almost like I was pretending to be a psychologist, you know, because I'm like, tell me your problems, even though I'm not a psychologist and I'm not going to talk therapy, solve your problems with you. I do know how to help you change your subconscious mind to solve your problems and set action plans and move forward. So it was quick in those terms. It was real quick. And I didn't tell you this, but, you know, I went back to him after the pain was gone and I said, this is a miracle. And can you help me get off pain pills? That was my next big thing. I didn't realize I was addicted to pain pills. I had no idea. I was taking them because I was in pain. But as soon as the pain stopped, my brain said, go get your pills. And I was like, well, I don't need pain pills. I am not in pain. And my body was like, oh no, you need them. Whoa. Like I'd never felt that before. And so I went back to him and I said, hey, can we look into this? And he said, absolutely. Give me your arm. And so we started muscle testing and I thought I was addicted, but the muscle test said, no, you're not. And I said, well, why would I be taking them then? And he said, well, just guess. And so I thought, well, maybe it's because I'm afraid to be in pain. Maybe it's because I'm afraid of the withdrawals. We finally figured out it was because of my marriage problems. But the pain pills were numbing my marriage problems. I never took another pain pill from that moment on when I found that out. Now, my body freaked out for the next 10 days, but I was able to handle it because I was thinking, this is ridiculous. I'm not going to go to a doctor and lie that I'm in pain in order to numb myself from my marriage. This is ridiculous. I either need to fix it or get out of it, but I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Well, and again, you're putting yourself into as much influence and control over your own existence as you possibly can in this world that we live in, right?
Yeah.
But even what you just discussed, though it's a slightly different path, I find it again very resonant. How long did it take you to believe that the pain would not come back?
That's a good question. I don't feel like I had a problem with that belief. I don't remember questioning that or being worried about that. It was just like I'm on to solving the next problem, which is the pain pills, and then the next problem, the marriage, and then the next problem,
Well, I appreciate that. Obviously, I have a bias in asking that question.
Right.
It took me, after 31 years, it took me almost 6 months to believe it wouldn't come back.
Okay.
It's not like I was sitting there waiting for it to come back, but it was almost so unbelievable that it was existing that I had to figure out what that was. But similar to you, I also had to figure out my new baselines on things.
Yeah.
Because it was different. And I think that's the piece that I would also like to ask, because I think it's real. And yes, you just went on to the next thing, but I know that at least for me, I almost describe it like the day that I woke up without pain, it's as if the veil got lifted for my real capacity.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to think, feel, focus, what could actually be done, how I can compress time, how quick I could move, all of it was so radically different on the other side of pain. That it really was like a veil, just all the weight got lifted instantaneously.
Yeah.
How would you describe the experience for yourself? And given all the next action items that you went through, what was that process or that timeline before you really were like, okay, all right, I'm in the right path. The pain's not going away. I am living the life for Jenny. Like a lot of the stuff that you were working towards.
Yeah.
What was the dynamics of time on that?
Yeah. All the stuff I did with Dr. Warren, most of it switched pretty fast, except the marriage was probably the hardest one. And it's kind of funny. There's this book called The Color Code. It's personality types. My husband and I read it before we got married, and it described our personalities as blood, sweat, and tears. And we thought that was funny until we got married. And so still to this day, we work on our marriage because we are, I would say, polar opposites on almost everything. And we're both very dominant and in control and in charge. And it's so easy for it to turn back into, there's never been blood, but sweat and tears for sure. Tears on my end. And so, the timeline was the back was like 2 weeks. The pain pills was like 2 sessions. The marriage was 100 sessions. And then it wasn't better. It was actually worse, which is kind of shocking. And here's why it was worse. I thought that awareness would solve the problem just like it did for my back and just like it did for the pain pills. But it didn't for the marriage. I knew why I was this way. I knew why he was that way. I know what triggered me. But what I didn't understand was the power of my subconscious mind. And so I thought that I could consciously catch myself before I got mad or before I said the thing, right? And what I couldn't do was just that, because the subconscious would react first. And then I'd go, oh, shoot, I wasn't supposed to get mad, but now I'm furious. How do I unwind this? And so after 100 sessions, I just said, you know what? This is hopeless. I mean, I've given it 20 years, 100 sessions, uncle, right? Oh my gosh. Yeah. And so the doctor said to me, well, Jenny, there's this process that's more of subconscious change than awareness. And maybe that's what you need, a little bit of that. And so I looked up this conference that was coming up. It was literally the next week or so. It was in LA. I bailed for 3 days. I thought this will be great. I can get away, clear my mind, plan my escape. I for sure thought I was leaving my marriage, 100% sure, which goes against everything I believe in. So this was a 20-year, 100-session decision in the process.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, not taken lightly, obviously. I mean, shit, you knew 2 years in and then you made a decision to stay.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I went to this workshop. I learned about the power of the subconscious mind. I did a bunch of work on my own subconscious limiting beliefs, just in general, not about my marriage at all. And I got home from this conference and I had just gotten super excited about this work. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited to help people with this. And I bought the business name Balanced You back then. And I was just so excited. And I kind of forgot about all my marriage problems. And I got home and I saw my husband and I felt like I felt when we were engaged, like just warm and fuzzy and loving and cuddly and in love. And I was so confused. Why am I feeling this way? What is going on right now? And now in hindsight, I can look back and say, you know, I came into this marriage a super wounded soul, and anything he did, I took it so personally, and it wasn't meant to be personal, you know, but if you're wounded and someone pours salt on it, it hurts. But if the wound's gone and they pour salt, it doesn't hurt. It falls on the floor.
Yep.
Right? And the salt could be not on purpose. It could be, I forgot to do something, or I should have said something, or, you know, whatever the thing is. And I realized, oh my gosh, it's been me this whole time, not him. And then I spent like the next 5 years apologizing. It was me. It was me. It was me. Oh my gosh, it was me. I'm sorry. Yeah.
Yet another area I have deep resonance with you.
Yeah.
There was a period in my life, and I can say it now without shame, both in the way that I felt and thought, but in the ways that I showed up. But there were periods in my marriage that I would even think to myself, feel to myself how weak my wife is. Which could not be further from the truth, right? Especially dealing with me and the big energy that she did for so long. But even what you're talking about, though, and I so appreciate the nuances of how you just unpacked your marriage components, because it connects so many dots throughout the course of the conversation today, right? Up to and including even the ability to get in your body enough to know when it's happening and how to affect and change it.
Yeah.
And the elements of our unconscious that keep us trapped if we're not careful. Right? Up to and including, we carry cellular memory mentally, physically, spiritually, and emotionally.
Yeah.
Right? To your point exactly, and this is the concepts that we teach in the Trash from Our Past, it's like you're reacting to the way your dad looked at you and you loaded the dishwasher incorrectly when you were 7, not your husband who asked you a question about your coffee. Right? Like, and I realize I made that example completely up. But the point is, we're often not even reacting to what's right in front of us. And then it's the big energy, the reactions. My wife used to ask a question as simple as this, Jenny. Hey, honey, what do you want to do with the kids this weekend? My shame and my anger filter would cause me to hear it this way. Hey, honey, you've not done enough to be a good husband and father here recently, so what are you going to do to make up for it this weekend? Well, you better damn well believe I'm going to defend that. Because I'm a great husband and father, and then I'll rattle off the 10 things I've done in the last few days to show her I'm a good husband and father, and that wasn't even what she was asking in the first place. And so, to your point exactly, I love that you grounded it in the way that you did, because I always say there's 2 ways for us to actually remove our armor. The need to justify, defend, or protect anything. Feeling as if the world's attacking us. It can be fabricated in a moment with a choice, but it is very difficult to do that. And it's only sustainable when we actually get to the root or source that creates that belief or that reaction in the first place. Because to your point and how you said it beautifully, when there isn't a wound to put salt in, then the salt falls right off. It does not stick anymore. And that's such a beautiful way to communicate it. That said, we do still exist in these human bodies. And a lot of your work has been around this proactive shift for you to regain control of the subconscious, proactively and preemptive to a reaction or some body, change that is telling you or pointing you towards something. Yet you still live in this human body. And it's impossible for us to do that in every situation, in every place, because we run out of capacity. We don't see things coming. Other stuff gets surfaced. Where do you find yourself still having moments of reaction that obviously probably have nothing to do with what's right in front of? And what are the patterns that you're still working on within yourself to, again, shift into that proactive rewriting of the subconscious?
Yeah, I love that question. And it mostly has to do with my marriage. We've been empty nesters for a year now. And so we have a lot more time together. And as you remember, this personality type of blood, sweat, and tears, I've done a lot of work on myself, whereas my husband hasn't done any work on himself. And so that is a dynamic that I'm always doing extra work on, to be patient and loving with him being who he is, as he is. If he stays this way or changes, it takes a lot of work to be patient, because everybody has trauma from the past and reactions to things that, like you said, it could be like, I didn't mean that, right? But that's how they take it. So, now that we're spending a lot more time together, I feel like there's always work to do there. And I preemptively work on my subconscious to try to avoid any of those issues. But of course they come up. And when they do, now we can talk through it a little bit more without me being so upset and so hurt like I used to be in the past. But then also I can do some work afterward with just being patient, kind, loving, accepting, forgiving, understanding to people where they are. And I feel like my husband is a great tool for me to work on myself, to improve myself. And I'm not trying to say that in a rude way. I'm trying to say that I grow from this relationship, because if it was just easy, I wouldn't have to do all this work. I wouldn't have to improve myself. I'd just be having fun. Right. So it's the hard things that really cause growth and meaning.
I'm only with my wife because she was the first woman I was with that ever pushed back. And I wanted that. I needed that. It was something that I very much appreciate, because to your point, look, easy, or just because somebody doesn't push back doesn't mean that there's not a whole bunch of other complications. And yet I'm a way better version of myself because of who she's also allowed me to see in myself that I could not see in myself. Right. So to see that reflection, I say today, and I really am grateful, even in the way that you talk about it, and over a 30-year period, my wife and I are together for 19 years. We're going on 15 years married. And yet through all of this, it's interesting because I feel like we're still just getting started. Yeah. Right. We hid from each other unconsciously for 14 years, and she's only felt truly emotionally safe with me for just over 3.
Yeah.
Right. It's also not a coincidence that we have the best life, the best relationship, the best communications. And so you've done a ton of work in this space.
Yeah.
If you look over the last 30 years, right? Obviously you've got 4 kids, they're grown, they're out of the house. That's a big part of the story.
Yeah.
But of those 20 years, sorry, not 20, the 30 years that you guys have been existing together, how many of them would you say were deeply connected, deeply intimate, deeply trusting?
Yeah.
Right? In all the ways that we hope, or at least are working towards making our marriages today.
Yeah. The first 2, because it was just, honeymoon bliss. And then it was 18 years of yuck. And then once I learned all this about my mind, the last 10 years have been night and day, so much different. And again, now that we're in this new phase, it's like when life shifts, then you kind of re-get your bearings, so it's been fun to be in this phase where now we're more friends also, because we have time to, it's not like you take that kid there and I'll take this kid here and then we'll meet at midnight, it was just, we have more time together. And so it's cool to be friends also, when we maybe didn't have that time or didn't make that time before with all the things we had going on.
How would your kids describe the transition and transformation that they've witnessed within you over the last decade?
I should ask them. That's a great question. I can only speculate on it. I feel like I was a much better parent for the last 2 because I had started learning this work, although the first 2 I would say are more resilient and maybe wouldn't have noticed. I'm not sure. But now I love that all 4 of them, we talk, all the time. They live all over the country, so nobody even lives nearby, but we talk a lot. And I love that they can share what they're going through with me. And I love that I have a way to help them feel better, whether they're studying for a test. I've got some kids getting higher educations right now and doctorate and things like that. They get stressed out. They're concerned about something with their finances or their marriage. I feel like I can listen, but also offer a solution, something we can do about it if they want it. And I usually ask them that. Should we fix it? Or do you want me to listen? Or you want a little bit of both? Yeah. And they tell me, first listen, and then let's fix it. Okay, perfect. Tell me what's going on, So it's powerful. I love our relationship and that I can help them and someday eventually a pile of grandkids too, I hope.
Well, I can also appreciate that you recognize that feedback is permission based, and through even the dynamics of talking about your marriage, what I respect and appreciate as well, in addition to all the value that you've added, is the complete ownership that you are able to take and not pointing or blaming towards others. You know, I know you identify as being a blamer of everyone else for the majority of your life.
Yes.
And so this radical shift is extremely powerful, yet it is also coming back down to the truth.
Yeah.
And it's clearly driven this last decade and the next future for you in the work that you're doing.
Right.
And so you studied, you started to learn these techniques, not just for yourself, but then to be able to bring them into the world and help other people.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that last period of your life, these 10 years post real estate, living into probably for the first time ever who Jenny actually is and what she wants and is capable of. What has that experience been like for you? And how, I guess, are you specifically going about finding the people who feel that they're out of solutions so that you can provide them some?
I love that. You know, when I started, I just was so excited to have an answer, because even when I would start to realize, okay, there's a problem, I need a solution, you know, maybe I'd go to a therapist and, you know, they could give me some techniques or some tools, but really I feel like so much of my problem was my subconscious programming. Mm-hmm. And, you know, according to scientists, our subconscious is 1,000,000 times more powerful than our conscious mind and controls us about 95% of the time, which is crazy to me. And I'll give you an example that I love to share. It was a year ago or so. I was reorganizing my laundry room. I moved my dryer sheets from one cabinet to the other. And so I'd be working, I'd hear the dryer buzz, I'd run down there to grab a dryer sheet out of the cabinet, and I'd reach for the wrong one because my mind was programmed for 8 years. It's been over here. And now I moved it to the other side. And I go, oh, silly me. I moved them. So I reach over and get it thrown in. Dryer buzzes. I run down to do another load and I reach to the wrong cabinet and I go, oh, shoot, it's over here. I mean, that went on for 6 months. How unconscious am I? I know I move them. If you would ask me where they are, I could tell you where they are, but I wasn't thinking about it. By the time I left my desk and got to the laundry room, I was thinking of something else and on autopilot. And so my life, all of our lives are on autopilot more than we realize. And so learning about that and working on that mind is so powerful. And so I love telling people that, you know, a lot of what's going on with you could just be this autopilot. And so would you be willing to change your autopilot, and how would you rather have it? And sometimes just that question helps them feel better because they're so stuck in what's not working and I can't fix this and I don't know what to do and this is so bad. And all of a sudden they can turn it into, what do I want? And what actions can I take besides the work that I do? What actions can I take to move forward in those goals? It starts to shift their energy field, starts to shift their, you know, what you think about is what you bring about, and what you focus on expands. All of a sudden they're expanding into the positive instead of the negative, and they start feeling better. So for the past 8 or so years, I've been on stages all around the country, and that's how I got my clients. Speaking, which is cool because I was scared to death to speak and I was the worst speaker. And so I had to do a bunch of work on myself to get confident speaking. And then I hired a speaking coach to get good at speaking. And now people are like, oh, you're so lucky. You're such a good speaker. I'm like, oh, it's not luck. It was a lot of mind work and 150 grand with a speaking coach. That's what it was, right? That's why I'm a good speaker now. But what happened was I always felt like I wanted to make a bigger impact, and how could I do that? And so I put my work into an app. It's called Leap Transformation, and it's literally like having a coaching session with me. I wanted to be affordable and accessible worldwide. So it wasn't just someone who could afford to hire me and work with me privately, but anybody could pull me out of their pocket, pull up Leap Transformation and solve a problem, feel better, achieve a goal, work on personal growth. It goes through the exact same steps I do with somebody in person. And so I'm so excited about my app, and I've recently teamed up with an insurance company. So we're bringing it into corporate, And I just love making an impact on the world and helping people know there's a solution if you're willing to do it. It's right there and it's right between your ears.
Yeah. The mind really is an unbelievably powerful thing, and in ways that I think we will never be able to fully grasp and understand. To the point of allowing, your mind to even be able to direct healing and alleviation of pain. And as crazy as this sounds to some people, I'm even redeveloping a muscle that was removed after my arm was torn from my body years ago. And the people who do body work on me can palpably feel it and know that there's a difference and a gain, but it's been through getting into the cellular level and allowing myself to be able to have and grasp that. Now, that said, whatever work I've done, I still feel like I'm in my infancy on and still consistently developing and growing. But I think, you've hit on a number of topics that I think are extremely relevant. And one of the things you said earlier, and it was true as it relates to, I think it was your marriage, but it's also something that I think many people identify and resonate with as it relates to talk therapy or any work that they've done. This idea of awareness, right? Many people just become more aware of all the ways they should be judging themselves instead of actually understanding what to do about it or how to move through it. Right. And we do often work really well off of a path, a predefined path, and we can easily learn and incrementally have those wins, just like with your muscle testing, that your body knew and resonated and kept you going back, even though the problem itself was still seemingly far away after the first or second session. You've got this app. I love that you're going global and doing a partnership with that. My background is in corporate on the employee benefits side, deep in the insurance space. And I also know how much that can impact even a workforce and overall organizations to be able to keep this together. You say it walks us through the process that you would if we were sitting with you in person. Can you give us the most simplistic, distilled version of how you approach a new client? Either what questions you start to ask, and I realize it won't be all inclusive, but give us an abbreviated version of like, hey, I'm somebody that I don't even know what my problem is today. I just know that I want something to change. I don't know where to go. I feel hopeless. And I don't know how to tap into my subconscious mind. Jenny, how would you help me?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd ask you, what do you want? Brian, what do you want different in your life? Is it your health and wellness? Is it your relationships? Is it your professional success? What do you want? Like if you had a magic wand right now, what would it be? I'd help you come up with a goal statement. It's going to sound like a positive affirmation. And then I'm going to walk you through a brain exercise that is going to repattern that goal into your subconscious mind, making it your new automatic. Then I'm going to help you set an action plan so you can consciously take steps to move forward toward that goal. And then we're going to track your progress in a week. And our last 700 private clients say that they get an average of 57% improvement after one brain exercise within 1 week. So that's what I'm going to expect. Some big change within a week, because that's the power of the subconscious mind.
Yeah, I completely agree in the ability to compress time and to show people things that they may not otherwise believe are possible. The first question, by the way, that you ask, it's interesting. It's we do similar things in different ways with different language, right? And so why I highlight that is that I think it's always interesting what is accessible to other people. And even though that simple nature of the question is, what do you want, right? What is your purpose? That can be said in a different way as well. And I find that more people know what it's not than know what it is. So if somebody doesn't know what it is, how do you help them calibrate so that the brain exercises can support the conditioning to take them there with clarity?
I love it. I say this, what do you not want? And they
you just
say,
flip it.
I don't want, and they give me their list. And I'm like, okay, what is the opposite of going bankrupt? Having a lot of money. Okay, how much money? Okay, let's create a goal statement of that much money, right? What's the opposite of getting divorced? Okay, let's flip that around. So what do you not want? Now flip to the opposite.
What role would you say effective questions have in your process?
The main question I ask is just that first question. So it's not much conscious mind process. It's not really, there's no psychology to it. It's what's the goal? Let's do a brain exercise. Let's create an action plan. Let's track the progress. So it's very subconscious focused with that main question of what do you want?
Okay. I appreciate all this, and I've obviously studied and know a variety of these things as well. And so I'm just going a little bit deeper as well because I want to make sure I understand. There are many people who look at I am statements as a form of subconscious conditioning, right? And the studies on it suggest that there's truth to that because it's an answer to a who are you question, and you can answer it one of two ways: either who you are today or who you want to become, and live into that. You also suggested earlier, though, and I'm not suggesting that that's your only technique or the only dynamic. So I'm trying to find a way to decipher and distinguish, because you said earlier on, man, I fell right into my I am statements. I'm happy, I'm good, I'm right. And sometimes we can even condition to the performance level versus to the level that actually is what we desire and want. Help me understand, how do you decipher and distinguish between that? And in these brain exercises, how do they either, align with or contrast with the simple concept of I am statements?
I love that. So the I am statements I was saying before that I'm happy, I'm healthy, I'm terrific. I've been saying those in the mirror for 20 years. And it would sound just like that. I'd be positive, optimistic. Then I would finish the sentence and I would say, no, I'm not. I am not that way. And so first off, I wasn't conditioning my subconscious mind. I was just saying a statement. I was in high beta brain, not programmable, saying something that I don't believe. And so it wasn't changing me. I was just memorizing statements of what I wanted that I wasn't believing in. The subconscious is sensory. What does something feel like and look like and sound like? And so these brain exercises we do, we slow the brain down into a programmable state. We open the brain bridge. It's called the corpus callosum. It creates a whole brain state, a state of super learning. And we do different breaths and body postures and statements while in that state, so you can build new neural pathways in the brain. This changes the cellular response. So if you were a road rager and you came to me and you wanted to be a calm, peaceful driver, we rewire the brain so the next time you get cut off, you don't have that knee-jerk reaction. All of a sudden, you just feel like nothing, or calm or peaceful, and you go, what? How come I'm not mad right now? Because that reaction is no longer within you. That pathway in the brain has changed. And then we take action from there, which is, notice what's shifting, and is there anything you can do to be a more peaceful driver? Well, maybe leave earlier so you're not in a rush. Right? There's some conscious things you can do as well.
I really appreciate how you answered that question. And thank you for actually giving some of the depth beyond just the rehearsal and exercise that I find so many people try to prescribe. That's not what I believed you were doing, which is why I wanted you to expand, because you really are giving somebody a process to be able to actually rewire their experience, their associated experience, and how everything inside of them is even responding in those moments. Now, what I also know, though, is that just the simple shift of our subconscious mind doesn't mean that it stays there, right? And so I love that you talk about this through the lens of brain exercises, but we can compress time into a moment or a minute to give somebody a new experience. But 2 days later, 2 years later, 20 years later, if they've not maintained or put some effort into it, they're going to revert back, because that's also what we do. So that's the next piece, is after you condition this and start to help people live into it, how do you set them up for sustainable success to continue down the paths of their subconscious wiring that they desire, and to continue to expand in the places that maybe they haven't explored yet?
I love that. I think one of the things that's really surprising is how permanent subconscious change is. When it's changed, a lot of times it really is changed. I mean, I got rid of my bad temper probably 10 years ago, and my bad temper has not come back. I've not had to work on my bad temper. It's like this stick of dynamite is no longer in my mind. It's not there anymore. But what does come up is life changes. Things happen, like turn on the news, right? I mean, things happen personally and in the world. And how do we deal with the everyday? Psychologists say we have 50 to 80,000 thoughts per day. 80% negative, 90% a repeat of yesterday, which is why today feels like last week, last month, last year. And so what I talk about, the mind is like the body. How often do I exercise my body? Every day. I go for a walk, I go to the gym, I lift weights, I do something every single day. How often do I pay attention to what I eat? Every single day. Why? Because I want to be fit, I want to be healthy, I want to feel good, I want to have energy. The mind is the same way. In one of my books that I wrote, in one of the chapters, I call it puppy brain. Like, if you don't train your puppy, if you don't train your brain, it just runs amok.
Yeah,
it misbehaves. It chews on the couch and pees on the floor and steals your shoes. And that's what your mind will do. If you're not controlling it, it'll control you. And so I say, work on your mind every day with my app, Leap Transformation, 15 minutes a day, just like you're going to work out your body, work out your mind. I'm a spiritual girl. I love scripture. I work on my spiritual side. Like, anything you want to improve, you got to put some effort into it, right? If I want my marriage to be great, I need to spend some time with my husband, So put some time into your mind every day.
Absolutely. Jenny, thank you so much for everything you've brought to us today through the nature of this discussion, the vulnerability, the transparency, the actionable tools. I know that we're going to have all of your links in the show notes. People will be able to find your Leap Transformation app so they can give it a run for themselves. And I'm just really grateful for how you showed up today.
Thanks, Brian.
And for those of you that just watched Jenny jump in and flip open her lid, she was very aware of the limiting beliefs that shaped her for a long time, but was not always aware or understanding that she had solutions or things she could do about it. And even once she started to believe that, there was still a process of learning how. Look, we do get wired and conditioned early on, whether it's from a perfectionist mother or a father that's trying to give us different types of treatments. But both of those create elements of our identity that might not actually be congruent with who we are at the core, but rather are living into who the world has told you who to be. But the power of the subconscious mind is to truly compress time and live into, with clarity and with lived experience at a cellular level, a different element of who you are. And you actually can have freedom on the other side. She teaches this, she lives this. And after living with years of chronic pain that was affecting every aspect of her life, she's now been over a decade without any pain. It's possible for all of us with the power of the mind. And all it's going to require you to do is flip open your lid, scan your can.
What you can probably tell by now is that I love telling these stories, but what I love even more is the impact that's coming from them. You see, we're on a mission to impact over 1 billion lives as quickly as possible. But to do that, we need you. See, we believe that moved people move people. And so all I'm asking is, if you've resonated, connected with any of the messaging, please consider commenting, sharing, leave a rating and review. Thank you so much for tuning into Flipping the Lid. And if you want more information on the show, how to become a guest, how to recommend a guest, or any of the other details, head over to flippingthelid.com. We'll see you there.